Good evening, very warm welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show. Now, I use your Monday night show here on the channel, looking at the weekend's action, or in this case, the last week's action, really, given the midweek fixtures we saw across the Premier League as well. I'm Chris Bell, did I say, joined as ever by Gareth Walker, and we'll be joined a little bit later on by our Huddersfield Town man, Stephen Downs. Sadly, despite a really good week for Leeds United, we can't get either Jay or Brownie to be free tonight, but they did do a couple of shows over the course of the weekend, so they're available on the channel, including a full review of their 3-3 draw against Liverpool. Gaz, how are we, mate? Are we well?
Just full of cold, mate. I can't hear out my left ear, so you might have to speak up a little bit. But other than that, I'm all right. Another win for City, so that's the main thing, and clinging on to that top 2 position at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Both the top 2 actually in League One, and both picking up wins at the weekend. We'll start, though, with the non-league seed, and we'll just do a quick whistle-stop tour. Sadly, our non-league man, Lewis Sale, is away for work, so we can't join us tonight. So I'll run it through it as quickly as I can, really. Starting at the top of the non-league seed with Halifax Town, they got a good 4-0 win over Braintree. That win itself moves Halifax up a couple of places, back up to 10th now, only 4 points off the playoffs, and obviously not a bad side in Braintree, to be fair. They've picked up some plucky results at Braintree, despite their lead position, but a comfortable win with 4 different scorers on the score sheet for Adam Lakeland's side at the weekend. As I say, that does move them up down to within 4 points of the playoffs into the Northern Premier League. Just Guiseley in action over the weekend in the Northern Premier League itself, a top division, and it was a late winner for Will Longbottom in the 90th minute that secured a big win for Ian Richards' side, and he's worked wonders, to be fair. He's had a really good start since making the move to Nethermoor from Stockbridge Park Steels, and the Lions have climbed as high as 13th. They are, I think, 4 or 5 points above the bottom 3, and I think, if we can just find it off the top of my head, they are 8 points off the playoffs. So you never know. Form momentum is key. Look, it's asking a lot. We know, Gaz, with Guiseley from the difficult start they had to the season. They've kind of put themselves in a position where they were hoping to make the playoffs at the start of the season and then not looking likely of making the playoffs at all. But as I say, the start that Ian Richards has had in his first 4 or 5 games, 8 points at this stage of the season isn't that far off the playoffs, really, is it?
No, still half a season to go, Chris, so plenty of time to make that ground up. Like you said, the main thing is that he's had the reaction that they wanted, because obviously we talked about it at the time when Bowser lost his job, and obviously Ridehouse was in temporary charge and that didn't work out. It would have been a disaster for them to go down, or it still would be a disaster for them if they were to drop down again. They need to be competing at the top end of that division and looking to go up every season until they do, really. So the fact that he's had the impact that he's had is really good, and like you say, mate, still half a season to go, so there's plenty of time to make that ground up and see if they can make the playoffs.
Yeah, momentum as well is everything. Let's turn our attention then to the Northern Premier League East. Not too many games, as you can see, the weather playing its part as always, but a couple of our sides in action. Brentford Park Avenue, they got a late 94th minute winner from the assistant manager / centre half and former Guiseley legend as well, Danny Ellis. He popped up with a very late winner in that one over Blythe Spartans. Emily, they continued their good form with a 2-0 win away at Grimsby Borough. Sadly, Brighouse were beaten on the road up in the northeast at Heaton and Stannington, and Ossett United, they were beaten after a pitch inspection. They were beaten by Dunstan. Again, Dunstan, one of those particularly strong northeastern clubs at Northern Premier League East level. As you can see, a couple of postponements for the likes of Garforth Town against Lincoln and Silsden against Redcar, which, depending on how you look at it, maybe a blessing in disguise for Matt Cameron's side, because Redcar in the reverse fixture put 10 past Silsden. But to be fair to Matt Cameron's side, they've been in some decent form of late and have really dragged themselves away from the danger zones. Into the Northern Counties East League, 1 or 2 sides in action in the FA Vars third round. As you can see, Albion Sports were beaten 3-0 by South Liverpool, but Liverpool, they've got they also went out sadly on penalties, losing 6-5 on penalties to North Shields. But again, tough games for both of those sides in particular. North Shields, a good, strong Northern League outfit. Not a particularly easy place to go. In the NCL Premier Division. Horbury were beaten on the road at Bottisford Town. Campion picked up a good win over high-flying Sheffield. Golka were beaten on the road at Handsworth. And Thackley, I think you chalk that up as one of those days, a 7-0 home defeat against Frickley. Yeah, one of those days, I guess, do you reckon, for Thackley?
They'll be hoping so, won't they? It is just one of those days. 7-0 at home. Don't see that very often. Hopefully they'll be... Danny Forrest's not there anymore, is he?
No, so Danny Forrest made that move to Liversedge, and currently, as I bring up the table for the Northern Counties Premier Division, Liversedge are sitting top. They've got 4 games in hand over Handsworth, who are second, and there are 4 points ahead of them. It was a bit of a slow start, to be fair.
Yeah,
it was a little bit of a slow start.
Yeah.
Say again.
What a start for Danny Forrest.
Yeah, well, it took him a few games to get going. This is the remarkable thing, actually. I think after 4 or 5 games, they were nowhere near the top.
Right.
They dropped a few points in the opening games of the season, and have then just been on absolute fire since. I'll say, and you can see what they've done, and with those games in hand, and obviously it's that cliche: you'd rather have the points on the board than the games in hand. But still, if you win even 2 of those 4 games in hand, you're 10 points clear. So in a very, very good position. Campion are a side to watch at the moment. They're on a very, very good run. They, again, started the season slowly, but they've got themselves up to 7th, just 6 points off those playoff places. And a couple of, as you can see, a couple more of our sides in contention with the playoffs. Tadcaster Albion sitting in 4th, and a couple of mid-table sides in the likes of Eccles Hill and Thackley at the moment. Just Albion Sports that seem to be in particular danger. As you can see, 18 points from their 19 games at the bottom of the table. Only Woolwell Town propping them up at the moment, but they're by no means adrift, with Rossington Main also on 18 points, and Horbury and Golka just above them. Looking at the NCL Division 1, the results over the course of the weekend, the sides in our region that were in action: Glasshouse and Welfare beaten 2-1 by Leeds UFCA. Again, Leeds UFCA continuing their good start, not just to the season, but to being in the pyramid full stop. Their first season in the pyramid, and going very, very well. Goals from Omar Sanyang and Kevin Gonzalez. Ilkley Town beaten by a Brazil Zotos, a former Sheffield Wednesday youngster in his day. Zotos, hat-trick for Maltby Main as they won 3-1 at Ilkley Town. Nostell Miners Welfare were beaten 5-2 at home against Goole. Slightly surprising, because Goole have been off the rails a bit of late as well. And then finally at the bottom there, South Leeds beaten 4-1 by Crowell Colts, including, if I just take the banner off the bottom a sec, a former Leeds United youngster in Robert Guilfoyle on the score sheet for Crowell Colts. So that means the table for the NCL Division 1 looks like that. Durham District leading the way, 59 points from 25 games. Quite a remarkable start to the season for them and for Harrogate Railway and Worsborough Bridge, to be fair to them, all on plus 50 points at the moment. Wakefield currently sitting in 4th. Leeds UFCA, I'd say, in their debut season, doing very, very well, a point outside the playoffs. That kind of rounds up the non-league stuff. We'll go into more detail with it, I'm sure, when we get Lou back on the show, hopefully next week. So we'll turn our attention then, Gaz, to Bradford City and the weekend's action for them. It was a long trip down south to Plymouth Argyle to face Bradfordian Tom Cleverley in the dugout for Plymouth Argyle. And somehow, I mean, let's be honest, we've been saying for a while, how is Tom Cleverley still in a job? We go again with that particular phrase, and a good win for Bradford City at the weekend. Not convincing by any stretch, but at the end of the day, 3 points you can't argue with.
Yeah, just a little note on Tom Cleverley. He looked dishevelled. I don't know if you saw him, Chris. The camera kept showing him. It was on Sky. It was on Sky Sports Plus or whatever it is, the channel that shows lots of different games. And the camera, I was watching it. The camera kept showing him. He was in the stands for some reason. So I don't know if he'd had a touchline ban or something. But he didn't half look dishevelled and troubled and goodness knows what. I felt a bit sorry for him, to be honest. Bradford lad, like you say, started his career at City before Man United took him as a youngster and obviously played for England. So obviously not nice to see him like that. Plymouth themselves actually were more of a test than I thought they'd be. They changed shape. And when I say they changed shape, you might have thought that they'd go well, they did. They went with something different up top because obviously Lawrence Alage was suspended. But they actually went to 4-4-2, which was quite interesting. And I don't know if that caught City by surprise a little bit because it was a totally different setup to obviously what they've played so far this season. And Plymouth played well, to be fair to them. It was very attritional. It was a battle. It was a case of needing to win your individual battles and take your chance when it comes, to be honest. And that's what City did. I thought that Plymouth probably had more of the play without really creating too much. Sam Walker's not had a lot to do. And then that was in the first half. And then in the second half, City did improve in the second period. Created a little bit more. Tyreek Wright had a chance not long after we'd scored to make it 2-0, which Connor Hazard in the Plymouth goal made a really good save. And then the penalty that we got was, again, created by Stephen Humphreys, really. Interesting that he created it from coming in from the left because the debate rages on about whether he should be used from the left or down the middle. He was playing down the middle, but the run that he got the penalty from was him cutting in from the left. He beats two defenders and then he's in the box and one of the defender who's directly behind him pushes his hand into his back and he goes down and gets the penalty. It does look a bit soft, but when you raise your hands, that can happen.
I was going to say, it does. It's by no way a forceful touch, but it is one of those where if it goes the other way and a defender, for example, is being pressed by an attacker and feels that touch, the defender's always going to go down and usually 99 times out of 100 gets the free kick. In this position, it seemed that kind of soft touch on the back, but enough for Humphreys to go down, and the ref obviously saw it that way and gave the pen.
Yeah, it's one of those that's soft, but and I would feel a little bit aggrieved if it was against us, but then I'd also be looking at the defender and saying, why have you put your hand into his back? Because he's in front of you. What are you doing? So it's one of those that you take if it comes your way. The referee actually was Thomas Parsons, who we've spoken about before on this show, who was referee last year. When City lost at home to Tranmere, it was the second and last time that we lost at home last season, when he gave a very, very soft penalty to Tranmere that day against us, and basically allowed Tranmere to kill the game. I won't use the phrase that I normally use, but yeah, it was horrendous that Tranmere that day, and he kind of like evened it out a little bit, I suppose, on Saturday with the penalty that he gave to us. Plymouth will feel aggrieved, but like I said, there wasn't much in the game, and it was always going to be something like that, either a mistake, a penalty, or an absolute worldie that would win it for somebody. And thankfully, it was us. Sarcevic steps up and took the pen away, and we took the 3 points and won 1-0.
Yeah, and look, the way things have been of late for City, it obviously there was the win over Exeter, but prior to that, it was a difficult run where, despite the results and the performances, you were still maintaining that league position. I guess at the moment, it's just good to see a points return going your way, given the form that you had been on in the last few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's not get it wrong, Chris. We're not playing well at the moment. We're not free-flowing, high-pressing, in-your-face, scoring lots of goals like we were at the start of the season. You could argue that the extra 3 points and the 3 points at Plymouth were a little bit fortuitous. But what I will say about the Plymouth game was that we ground it out. It was built on a solid defence. Players were throwing the bodies on the line and making last-ditch tackles, and we defended really, really well, to be fair, and that is obviously the basis for anybody to win a game of football. It was the same against Exeter. Exeter had chances and created things, but the defence stood firm and did what they needed to do, and it's nice to see that, because like I say, at the start of the season, it was more the other way. We were scoring lots of goals, playing lots of attacking football, and it was the defence that was the weak spot. So if we can marry the two up, that'd be nice, but to ground a result out and take the 3 points after a long trip away, it was never going to be easy down there. It's a heck of a trip for 12:30 on a Saturday. I know some fans set off at 2:00 in the morning to get there. 3 points down there is a relief. And like you say, it's back-to-back wins in the league, having been on a run where I think we'd drawn 3 or 4 and lost the other one. So we were on a bit of a sticky run. We hadn't won in a while. Now we've won back-to-back. So now it's a case of seeing if we can marry up the attacking player with the defensive player with the previous attacking player that we had and go on a bit of a run.
Absolutely. And just before we continue, I'm going to bring in our Huddersfield Town man, Stephen Downs, who good to have you on, Steve, as always. How are you, mate? You all right?
Yeah, not bad, lads. Not bad. Sorry, I've missed the first bit.
Is that a Dewsbury Rams shirt? Have you forgotten what show we're on tonight, the football show?
I always wear my Dewsbury Rams shirt. It's just a nice shirt to wear. And it's a bit of publicity for my ex-employers.
Gaz, we'll carry on with Bradford for the time being. I mean, look, just want to bring the question that Ian puts it in a little bit earlier on. What's the latest with Alex Patterson? Is he injured? Is he dropped? What's the latest, do you think?
It's a topic that nobody really knows the answer to at the moment, Chris. I talked about it. I did a little video for the podcast yesterday that's gone up on TikTok and on YouTube and on Twitter. And it was one of the questions I raised. Patterson was taken off at half-time in the Exeter game 10 days ago. It wasn't obvious at the time that he was injured. Maybe he was. But Graham Alexander has been asked since then about injuries. Patterson didn't make the squad for the Bolton game in the Virtue Motors Trophy. And he again didn't make the squad for Saturday away at Plymouth. So ordinarily, that raises questions about, obviously, is he injured? He's come off at half-time. He's not made the two squads since then. But Graham Alexander was asked by Jamie Rayner after the Bolton game, and without being specific, Graham Alexander basically said that the players that we didn't know about weren't injured. They were just not selected. So that's all I can go on at the moment, is what Graham Alexander said after the Bolton game when asked by Jamie Rayner, and he did not mention an injury then. He seemed to allude more to the fact that it was a selection issue. As I discussed in the video that I put live yesterday, I think you can probably put Patterson in the same bracket as Callum Kavanagh and possibly even Andy Cook at the moment, in the not getting game time, or the not getting the game time that some fans might expect them to get, or they might themselves think they should be getting. Now, you could put that down to form. You could put that down to being out of favour. You could put that down to, obviously, Cookie's coming back from injury. They're all, well, Patterson and Cook in particular are fans' favourites at the club and have been for the time that they've been there for obvious reasons. It would be a shame to see either of them go, but they are the three that I'm looking at the moment, thinking, if they're not injured, why aren't they getting the game time? And that is a little bit of a concern, thinking about who could come in and who might leave in January.
Yeah, I mean, look, I wanted to touch on January because in the grand scheme of things, it's just around the corner. And I remember saying to you about, maybe 3 or 4 weeks or so ago, that were there any concerns of players in the Bradford City squad that you felt might be being looked at by other sides, by championship sides potentially, and may disrupt things in terms of the fact that you are where you are on the table because of player departures. Now we're a bit closer to January. How are you feeling? How are the fan base feeling about keeping hold of everyone or making additions to the squad? Or do you foresee any potential departures of not just, players you could consider fringe players, but key players out of that starting 11?
I wouldn't say there's anyone specifically in the starting 11, as in the sort of assets that we've got, that I would be... I can imagine championship sides wanting to take at this moment in time, to be honest with you. I think I said when you asked me at the time that Nerfville and Metcalfe were being watched by scouts at the Bolton game in the league. I know that for fact. But neither of them have been outstanding lately. Metcalfe's been in and out of the side. I rate Metcalfe, what I've seen of him. If it was down to me, he would be the partner for power on a regular basis in central midfield at the moment. Nerfville's form has tailed off as the season's gone on. Now, maybe that is due to the fact that we've been found out a little bit. He is our out ball. You noticed it when Lincoln came. The teams are doubling up on him and trying to prevent that. So his form has dipped. It's more a case of the players that I mentioned, I think, at the moment. I mean, Poynton's one that seems to go through phases of playing really well, and then he'll go through games where he's not involved, or he's not involved as much as you think he could be. I suppose that's the case with any young player. But yeah, it's more of a case of the ones that I mentioned before. Brad Halliday's one who you might look at. He was another one that hasn't been making the squad recently until Saturday, when he actually made the squad on Saturday and came on as a sub away at Plymouth on Saturday. That was his first appearance for a while. He was one that Graham Alexander, again, was asked about recently, in the same vein that he'd been asked about Patterson regarding injuries and stuff. And he was one that was alluded to as not being injured. But it is interesting that Graham Alexander has tried George Lapsley at right wing back rather than having Brad Halliday on the bench. That is a little bit of a concern. I am very concerned if we were to let Halliday go, that it's just sod's law that Nerfville would then get injured, or Nerfville's form would tail off even more, because Brad Halliday is just the ideal man, isn't he, to come in and play that role, given what he's done for us in the past. So nobody regarding none of the assets, it would be a surprise to me at the moment. I mean, Championship clubs might come in for them. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but there is nobody at the moment that I could see is playing well enough that a Championship club would be desperate to take them in January. It is more those players that I mentioned who were like, I suppose, fringe players at the moment, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I guess, well, ordinarily as well, you would look at, I suppose, League One sides that are, high up in the division and in recent years, bigger sides, the likes of Cardiff's, etc. I guess it's a little bit different because you're sitting second. You don't necessarily have that worry of bigger League One sides wanting to come and take them either, I guess.
Not to the extent as we might have done in the past as well, because those players that we're kind of alluding to here, that your Nerfvilles, your Poyntons, your Metcalfs, are on long-term contracts as well. The club has done very well when they've recruited those players, or when Poyntons signed his extension to give them longer-term deals to protect that value and protect that asset that the club has. I know that Nerfville and Metcalf are both on 3-year contracts, of which they're in the first year at the moment. Poynton is on a 2-year contract, but we do have an option in the club's favour to extend that for a 3rd year. So we are covered, touch wood, at the moment in that respect. So, and like you said, we're second in the league. So if they're playing regularly at this football club and we're doing well in the league, then you would imagine that if they were to look to move on, it probably ain't going to be in January, you would hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Looking ahead, Gaz, next up for City?
We've got Port Vale away in the league tomorrow night. And we've got Reading at home in the league on Saturday. So yeah, 2 league games in the next week. Port Vale, I would imagine, is going to be a very similar game to the Plymouth one. They're the only team below Plymouth in the league. They're struggling, the bottom. Darren Moore, obviously ex-City manager. Not ex-City manager, ex-City player. Devontae Cole, ex-City player, who they signed towards the end of the summer window, who scored a few goals for them. But we've got to go there and put in at least the performance that we did at Plymouth regarding defensive resoluteness and see if we can improve a little bit going forward. I went to Port Vale in a game towards the end of last season when both teams were looking, and eventually did both get automatic promotion out of League Two into League One. Port Vale beat us 2-0 that night, and it was a disappointing game in the respect that we actually started really, really well. First 10 minutes, Port Vale scored against the run of play. The crowd then got behind them. Our heads went down and we ended up losing 2-0. I think Smallwood missed a penalty towards the end of the game. And it was just one of those nights where at that moment in time, you were thinking we were going to end up in the playoffs, but obviously we recovered and went up automatically. We've got to put in a better performance than we did that night. We've got to build on the recent 2 victories that we've had in the league. And like I say, see if we can marry up what appears to be better defensive stability with a bit more of the attacking play that we saw at the start of the season. And if we can do that, there's nothing to stop us going there and getting a result. Reading, again, another side that obviously fancied to do well in the league this season, but struggling. And nobody really wants to come to Valley Parade at the moment, as we've been saying for a while, although Burton turned us over in the last but one home game, and Exeter did play well in the last home game. We managed to get the 3 points, and we've just got to look at building the home form, like I say, back to what it was at the start of the season. We need to get that attacking play back into that attacking nature back into our play, marry it up with the defensive stability that we've seen on Saturday and against Exeter.
We'll take a look at the league table in a little while after we've talked to Huddersfield Town then with Stephen Downs. And we touched at the start, Steve, before you joined, that obviously there was only the 2 League One games on Saturday, both lunchtime kickoffs, and both Huddersfield and Bradford were the sides in action. Whilst Bradford got the right result that they wanted for you guys at Town. I mean, look, it was always going to be a tough prospect away at Cardiff City. They are the league leaders for a reason. And, I mean, I've seen things, obviously, the scoreline, 3-2 Cardiff, makes it sound a good game and right on the edge. But your reaction, and having just seen the reaction of Kane and Cal on Town Talk last night, suggests that actually it could have been a bit more of a Cardiff landslide win than the score suggests.
Yeah, I think we need to take it back, though, 5 days earlier, really. When we...
I don't think we do, because it was an irrelevant game and nothing competition, so...
we successfully
Actually, we do, to be fair. Gaz, City going out of the EFL Trophy against Bolton.
That's something I talked about in my video the other night, yesterday as well. We were awful against Bolton, mate. It was a very, very worrying performance, and one where we showed that we're not probably got the depth that we thought we had, or certainly not got the depth that Bolton have got in their squad. But I don't think that's what Downsy meant.
I think it's absolutely what he meant, to be honest.
I just think, Gaz, that Chris is stalling for time. But anyway, like I said, we had a successful virtual trophy victory over a minnow club in Lincolnshire. I think when you look at the two clubs, Town are going to win this competition, where Lincoln would just be happy to get out of the group. I think. It was two chains.
We won the competition, for God's sake. You
won't
in
win COVID, but nobody cared about it. But anyway, let's move on.
That's so much better now, isn't it? So much better.
So anyway, it was a successful. Chris, I'll remove you from the stage, and then it will just be me and Gaz, and then we'll see what I say. No,
and then listen, I guess it was quiet at least.
True. It was a good victory. We play Rotherham in the next sort of round. Obviously, the main action, sort of the bigger game was obviously on Saturday against Cardiff. It was actually quite interesting that us and Bradford were the only League One games to be played, to be honest.
Thank God, otherwise we had nothing to talk about this week.
Yeah, well, so the top of the league. I knew we'd have a lot of the ball. Obviously, we did Town Talk yesterday, so please do go watch that if you have chance. We go into far more depth about the actual game, but yeah, Cardiff could have made it sort of. The scoreline was closer than what the game actually was. If we're being completely truthful, Cardiff did dominate a lot of the game. We had spells. Bojan could have scored once or twice. Alfred May, I think, came on and had a shot from memory. But really, it was Cardiff's to lose, and they nearly did lose it. Like, one of the things that it was quite similar to the Wimbledon home game, but like the opposite way around in a sense, where we did quite a good job when we did get those equalising goals to turn the Cardiff crowd on their back a little bit. But we just didn't pay that for long enough. And by the time kind of we ran out of steam in our little sort of bit of energy parts, Cardiff would strike again. And that's kind of what happened. 3-1, I thought it was going to be over. We got a late sort of like goal in the last couple of minutes to give us a little bit of energy, but Cardiff saw it out. And yeah, it's a disappointing loss. I expected to get thumped, and I did say that in both our WhatsApp chat and also quite, prevalently on the podcast, whether it was last Monday night show or Town Talk, not the last one, the one before, to preview the game. But yeah, it is what it is. We move on now to this week against two sides that we need to get 6 points against. And Lee Grant has come out. I haven't heard his press conference today, but I've read a couple of quotes saying, he doesn't want to be 4th to 7th in the league. He wants to be above that. Well, Lee, simple. There's a simple maths there you're going to have to do, mate. You're going to have to win more games.
Yeah, we'll look at that in a moment. I mean, Gaz, just to bring you in on that, I suppose winning at the Cardiff City Stadium just isn't for everyone, eh?
No, apparently not. That was probably our best performance of the season, to be fair. We did very similar to what Downsy said happened when Huddersfield scored. When we scored and took the lead, I think we went 2-0 up. I can't properly remember, but the crowd did get very angsty and got on their team's back, and that played into our hands. And obviously, I think we won that game 3-1 in the end. And like I said, probably our best performance of the season. But they have been their team to beat so far, haven't they? Especially at home. They're top for a reason, and not many sides will go there and win. So you've got to put it into perspective as a Town fan, I think. And like you said, Downsy, you thought that you'd go there and struggle anyway, but you're always in hope. You always feel you can go there. Like you said, I thought we'd struggle when we went there. We managed to turn them over, but that was a bit of an anomaly, I think. Like I say, it was probably our best performance of the season. I don't think we've played that well since, to be honest.
I don't think that the thing about the Cardiff squad that's a bit weird, and he's probably harnessed it because I know he had a young squad, didn't he, at Rochdale when he was a manager there, and he likes to work with young players, having come out of the Man City Academy, and the Cardiff squad is really young, and he's got a lot of Welsh lads in there, which obviously it makes it quite patriotic to play for Cardiff, and there's only really two clubs that are worth playing for in Cardiff, in a sense, in Swansea and Cardiff, and so he's kind of got a good mix there. They did have a few injuries. The main lad Colwell, he was out. When I saw the team sheet, I was happy with that, but it didn't really matter anyway. And they've got a good squad. I wouldn't say Town squad is much worse than Cardiff's, if I'm being honest, but the managers are using the tools better than what Lee Grant is, and Brian Barry Murphy. You've got to give him props to that. I know going into the season, a lot of Cardiff fans were very worried because they'd hardly signed really any players, and they've got a big budget there at Cardiff, and I think a lot of Cardiff fans were very worried, and they didn't really start the season off that well from memory. But he's built a hell of a side there that can play a certain way, and that's what they decided to do.
What do you make of Brian Barry Murphy, Chris? Obviously, you saw him at Rochdale, didn't you, when he was manager there? What is it, 3, 4, 5 years ago? Do you see this coming at Cardiff, or not at all?
He was a lucky man at Rochdale in that the season Rochdale went down was the COVID season. The season they went down from League One was the COVID season where everyone was watching it behind closed doors, because if there had been fans in the stadium, he wouldn't have lasted the season. They had the worst home record for donkey's years. I think out of something like 23 home league games, they lost something like, don't quote me exactly, but somewhere between 15 and 20 of the home games. The home form was abysmal that relegation season. I'd say, if fans had been there, he wouldn't have lasted. He'd have gone, because and he seemed to put performances over results time and time again in post-match interviews, and just bamboozle the supporters no end. So, and then had the cheek to want a payoff to then leave, to then go and take the Man City jobs. He well and truly soured himself at Rochdale, because he played for the club as well. And, all the work that he'd done the season before, he kept up in difficult circumstances. He lost in that COVID season. And to be fair, he's not surprised me in the style of play. The style of play is exactly what he always wanted to play at Dale, like possession-based, very tiki-taka, keep the ball.
Yeah.
But it was just dull. It was dull as shit when you're losing week in, week out for Dale fans that are watching from home, let alone being in the ground. So I don't know how the Cardiff fans long-term will take to it, because I remember when he was appointed, I thought Cardiff fans were in for an absolute bore fest of a season, but I suppose sitting top of the league, they probably won't complain.
Well, that's it though, isn't it? When you play great football like they did on Saturday, and they did play good football, it's a different feeling when you win, isn't it? Because you feel superior over every opposition, knowing the fact that they can't do that style of football and play it better than you, because you're the best in the league at doing it. But and to be fair, Chris, I don't know, but this might come into it slightly as well. At Cardiff, he has got better players, better standard of players that probably can pass a ball slightly better than the Rochdale lads.
You know what? I'm not going to go with that, because he had a far better squad at Rochdale. Bear in mind that Rochdale squad only 2 years earlier, or most of that Rochdale squad only a couple of years earlier, nearly made the League One playoffs. That wasn't a bad Rochdale side at all. That was one of the best Rochdale sides, technically.
Or is it better than this Cardiff side?
You know what? Given that Cardiff side is so young, probably not much different in the grand scheme of things. Probably not that much different, because there's half of them players in that Cardiff squad now that 6 months ago you wouldn't have known anything about. really.
Well, no, they've all
Because
come from the
they're
academy.
academy prospects sort of thing. So
Yeah.
what I'm saying though is you can look. Yes, you can be like, oh, it's only Rochdale. But the squad at Rochdale he had should have stayed up by a mile. Like he went down with a really good League One squad. That, as I say, only a couple of years earlier under Keith Hill had nearly made the bloody playoffs. Like it was a massive downfall at Rochdale that should never have happened under Barry Murphy. Like, I appreciate what you're saying in terms of the squads, but you know the technical ability of that Rochdale squad probably wasn't that much different. It was just the fact that it wasn't obviously getting the results that this Cardiff side is. But football is a strange game, isn't it? I mean, the fact that it doesn't surprise me that he did all right with. Well, I say all right. He didn't do too badly with Man City as the academy side, but it worked for him. It was the right sort of job for him was academy football. And obviously off the back of that, where he's been working with youngsters regularly for Man City, he's then been able to bring that natural progression to the Cardiff squad, where they clearly said to him, look, I mean, they're not financially the best of well-off clubs in the grand scheme of things. They've made some marquee signings, but there's a clear intent with Cardiff, I think, as you mentioned earlier, to kind of bring through Welsh lads and develop the homegrown talent. And obviously that works for the Welsh national side as well.
Well, if they get through to the World Cup, a number of those lads in the Cardiff side will be going to the World Cup if Wales do get there. But the scary thing really, and they could be on to absolute gold at Cardiff, is if they wanted to sell a few of these assets off, if they got up into the Championship and then did really well, you could be looking at some of these lads being worth 15 to 20 million quite easily.
Easy.
And if you've got 8 or 9 of them, 8 or 9 of them in your squad, you're looking at 100 million quid gold dust, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's players in there like Joel Bacon, Capaccio, the young lad Lawler, the centre half, Ashford. There's some really, really good homegrown talent in that squad. It's remarkable. It really is. Just before we kind of move on, just a good evening to the Sporting Journey. I know he's a regular kind of tuner in on a Monday evening, so a big thank you to you for joining us. Don't forget you can get your comments in as well on YouTube and on X and Facebook too. Let's turn our attention then to the league table for both of you, really. Obviously, Bradford, as we said, Bradford and Cardiff, the two sides that picked up the points in the only 2 games at the weekend. So still sitting top. I mean, Gaz, look, we've said it quite a lot this season. It's been a remarkable start, and what's been even more remarkable is, as you alluded to earlier, that pretty barren run of points returns remarkably hasn't seen you drop away, and then you get the 6 points in these last 2, and it just keeps you where you are in those automatic places.
Yeah, it is pinch yourself a little bit when you look at the league table, considering the run we were on. Although Graham Alexander has been at pains to point out that in that run where we didn't win, I think we only lost 1. We were drawing games, and we were drawing games against good sides as well. It wasn't like we were drawing. Yeah. We're dropping points against teams near the bottom of the league. Although, like I have said before, City do struggle against teams that will park the bus and play differently to how the fancied teams will play. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Chris. It's remarkable, really. I mean, you can kind of put it into context a little bit when you look at the gap between the top and the bottom of the league. I don't think it's that good. It's big. It's a very, very tight division. I mean, you look at Northampton in 15th, they're only 11 points behind us, and they're in 15th. So the league is tight from top to bottom. Stevenage can go above us. They've got the 3 points behind us with 2 games in hand. But it's so bunched up, it could change very, very quickly. We've just got to, like I say, see how long we can keep this going for. We've seemed to have tightened up defensively. We need to just marry it up with the attacking play from the start of the season and see if we can push on again.
It has almost split in 2 at this stage. But usually you kind of look at that and be, almost the top half and the bottom half. Just to put into context, what I couldn't quite fit on that graphic is that Burton Albion are 19th at the moment. They are on 22 points, which means that 19th in League One is only 6 points off the playoffs, which is absolutely staggering. The biggest gap between sides, though, is Burton Albion in 19th are 5 points clear ahead of Exeter City in 20th. So whilst Burton are on 22, Exeter on 17, then you've got 3 sides on 16 in the bottom 4, and then Port Vale, bottom of the league, on 14 points. It's absolutely ridiculous. that, as I say, there is 6 points between 6th and 19th, and yet 5 points between 19th and 20th.
And from a City point of view, what I've just noticed now, actually looking at the table, and I hadn't noticed it before, we've just got to be really happy with the fact that we're 7 points above 7th. So our cushion to the playoffs is 7 points, which is fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic to be, what are we, nearly halfway through the season and in that position as a newly promoted side. Like I said, I keep adding the caveat. We've got to realise that this might we're going to hit more sticky patches at times, and we've just got to remember where we were 18 months ago when we do, but enjoy it at the moment and see if we can push on again, like I say, and get back the attacking play that we had at the start of the season. Because if we can do that and marry it up with the defensive resoluteness that we've shown in the last couple of games, then we can be a match for teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Downsett, obviously, you mentioned a few minutes ago about how Lee Grant has said, he doesn't want to be a side between, 3rd and 6th or whatever it was. He doesn't want us to be a side that finishes in the playoffs. He wants to have a side that is challenging in the top 2. I mean, the league table makes that look simultaneously doable and also pretty bloody difficult, simply because, look, Luton, I'm sure, will have the same kind of thoughts. Those sides in the playoffs, in some cases, will have thoughts of being able to challenge for the top 2. And it wouldn't shock me. You're always going to get, a side or two from mid-table that in the second half of the season has a run on as well. So, look, I appreciate it's one of those sound bites, isn't it, where it's what he wants and he has to say that to keep the fans on side. But it's going to be a very difficult job to do so, because there's going to be so many sides also looking at the situation and thinking, you know what, we can make a run for the playoffs or the autos ourselves, are you?
Yeah, I mean, it is a soundbite, but it's a soundbite that doesn't really make any sense right now because we're sat 8th, and as form isn't amazing. All right, it's improved slightly, but we're not consistent, and we've still got a large chunk of the squad out injured. That's no excuse, by the way, because our squad is I think in the top 3 in the league. On paper, but football, as we know, is not played on paper, and it is a bit, it's a bit worrying. At least the main thing is you keep within your, whilst you are outside the playoffs, you have to keep your coattails on them and not let them get away. And we are only 2 points behind Bolton, only 3 points behind Stockport. I know it's a couple more than to Lincoln and Stevenage, but I think it'll all change come January. Not like all change, but I think there will be a few movers and shifters, and the transfer market does shake things up a bit. Wickham have had a really good run under Duff, and they've gone from like 20th in the league to where they are now in 12th. And normally what happens in League One is you do get a split pretty much down the middle. You have a top 12 and then a bottom 12. And this year,
seeing that this year, are we?
Well, we're not at the moment, but you wouldn't be surprised if that started to take shape. Like I say, maybe come after January, through January and then afterwards. And it's going to make a really exciting end to the league, isn't it? Because, you could be sat here at the moment as things stand, on the last day of the season, and anywhere from Wigan in 11th could theoretically get in the playoffs. So, depending on goal difference. For teams like Bradford, Lincoln and Stevenage, they just have to catapult themselves off the good start that they've had. And let's be honest, they've had an amazing first half of the season where teams such as Stockport, Bolton, Luton and Huddersfield and Barnsley, you could say, have certainly disappointed.
This is the problem. They can't all be, you can't all be top dog. That's the thing, I guess. And I guess for the likes of Stockport and Bolton, they're only what?
If Bradford and Lincoln could go back to being at the bottom of the table, that would be fantastic.
We haven't been at the bottom of the table for about 8 years, mate. The thing is, I guess, is that Barnsley have got those 3 games in hand. That's the one thing that kind of stands out mostly, is that whilst obviously a lot of sides have played 18, Stevenage, you look at, have still got 2 games in hand on Bradford. Cardiff, who were top, obviously, of game in hand on Bradford as well. Barnsley, that 3 games in hand on the likes of Huddersfield, Luton, Lincoln, Bradford. Things, as I say, things will change drastically. But the thing is, I just can't see, given the start of the season we've had, I really struggle to see it changing. I can't see sides, anyone particularly running away with it. At a push, maybe Cardiff. I mean, I'm going to try and see them in a couple of weeks' time when they're at Lincoln. But I can't see anyone running away with it. And I can't see the playoff sides running away with it either.
No,
Well, Barnsley with those 3 games in hand is a very good point to make. Although they can actually go level on points with us if they win their 3 games in hand. But you would imagine, I'm guessing, I haven't checked, Stevenage and Barnsley maybe have each other to play within that. The fact that Stevenage have 2 and Barnsley have 3. So teams are going to take points off each other. We're heading into Christmas where it's hectic and teams are playing 2 or 3 games in a week. And yeah, it's going to be a crunch time where we might know a little bit more, and it might even itself out a little bit more coming into the new year. Although, having said that, like I said the other week, we're also heading into a time of the season where the weather turns and games get postponed, so it might not even straighten itself out until April time.
You know what? That's a very fair point to make as well, because you know what the winters can be like for us over here. Just that Christmas period, as you say, it is pretty hectic with sides playing between now and the rest of the month, the 9th, the 13th, the 20th, then you got Boxing Day, then you're playing the 29th, there's a full fixture list, then there's a full fixture list. The next one after the 29th is, of course, New Year's Day on Thursday the 1st, and then there's a full fixture list on Sunday the 4th of January. That's one that we have to set my calendar and remember that we're playing on a Sunday instead of the Saturday. It is a busy, busy time.
Yeah, it is, and Christmas always shakes things up in the table. I think that's where if you can get on a positive momentum roll, it's probably a good time to do it, because then you set yourself out for the new year then, and you can go into the rest of January and February in good nick. But yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying about Barnsley. The only thing is, Town had 2 games on hand on a lot of teams a couple of weeks ago because of all the international breaks and stuff. But
you just didn't make most of them.
We didn't make the most of it, and that's what Barnsley have to do if they want to be up there.
Yeah, we will see. Time will tell. It's certainly going to be very, very interesting this running in League One across the festive period. It's fair to say, and obviously for us 3 games around the corner as well. Lincoln versus Huddersfield in the league on New Year's Day, and then Lincoln versus Bradford is back end of January as well, Gaz. So and actually sandwiched in between, isn't it? Is it when's? Remind me again. When's Bradford Huddersfield? Sorry, Huddersfield Bradford at the ACU.
It is in January as well. Yeah, I think it's
13th of Jan. I think
something like 13th, 20th, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we all play each other, don't we?
Can't wait to meet Lincoln on New Year's Day. It'll be fantastic.
Well, let's just hope that you actually make it to the game with me. Let's move on then from League One, and we'll finish up with a little bit of a Leeds-based discussion, which could go horribly wrong with a Huddersfield fan, a Bradford fan, and a man that supports Lincoln. But we'll touch on it. There is one Premier League game tonight, by the way. Wolves are currently 1-0 down at home to Manchester United. I think it was Bruno Fernandes that looked like he got the goal. He was one that was celebrating it anyway. For Leeds, though, Gaz, we'll start with you. I mean, obviously, you've got a Liverpool link as well to kind of go out with this. But for Leeds, last week was a bloody dream, to be honest. Let's be fair. Yes, a disappointing result, but the performance at Manchester City, they took that into the midweek game against Chelsea with a great win over Chelsea. And then again, that level of performance and that fight and that spirit, Elland Road in particular, got them a fight back and a point out of Liverpool on Saturday night. Yeah,
I mean, it's a shame the Leeds lads are on, to be honest, because I didn't see this coming at all. I don't think anybody did, really. I know there's been a change in shape. He's gone to 2 up front and 3 at the back. And
he's gone 3-5-2, Gaz. That's what he's done. Yeah. He's done 3-5-2.
Yeah, and that's obviously helped them in the respects that they're playing differently to how teams previously expected them to play. It's probably helping them tactically themselves as well. I can't comment on the Man City or the Chelsea games. I was shocked at the Chelsea result. I was shocked when Leeds came back from 2-0 down at Man City. And like you say, as a Leeds fan, you'd only be absolutely devastated that they conceded so late to lose that game. I can comment on the Liverpool game at the weekend. I was talking to Brownie and Jay in the group chat before and during the game, and I just said to them that I thought there was something there for Leeds, just given the state of the situation at Liverpool at the current time, which has obviously only escalated since with everything that's gone on with Salah in the last couple of days. But Liverpool were there to be got at and are there to be got at the moment, and I did say to them that going to Ellen Road on a Saturday night, a night game under the lights, they needed to be in Liverpool's face and get at them and cause them problems that way, because Liverpool aren't winning second balls at the moment. They're not winning individual battles. They're not winning duels. They've not got the intensity that we saw them have under Klopp and how they had the intensity that they had under Slot last season. They look dishevelled to a certain extent. And I didn't think Leeds did that enough, to be honest, at any point during the game. I think if they had done, they would have won that game. I think in the first half, they could have got after Liverpool even more. And I think that, I know they equalised in the 96th minute, but I think if they'd have gone for it again in that last 2 or 3 minutes, they could have even got a winner, because Liverpool, just like I said, they're broken at the moment. And I think a little bit more of how you could see the reaction both in Ellen Road from the Leeds players, Leeds fans, and in Ellen Road from the Liverpool players. When Konate gave the penalty away, you knew what was coming, and Leeds fed off that. And I think if they'd have had a bit more of that, they could have won it. But obviously, to come back from 2-0 down and 3-2 down against the champions at home in itself is a great result for them. But I honestly feel, and I'm not having a dig here, but I honestly think they could have had more, because Liverpool are an absolute mess and they're not dealing well with adversity at the moment. And as soon as Konate gave the penalty away, I did feel that it'd go 2-2. I honestly did. And like I said, when it went 3-3, another 5 or 10 minutes, I think they'd have won that game.
It is mad, though, to be fair for Liverpool, when you look at the fact that you're only 3 points off the Champions League places of fourth at the moment. I mean,
yeah, they'd have been level on points with fourth if they'd won on Saturday, which is crazy considering the run that they're on.
Yeah, yeah. Again, Premier League seems to be a pretty tight table as well. I mean, down to let's touch on Farke, because we all thought we certainly thought before the that kind of run of Man City, Chelsea, Liverpool, that Farke would either have gone or would probably lose the 3 games, get given them, lose them all, and then be gone afterwards. Not the case. And if anything, he's probably earned himself a few more brownie points with the Leeds faithful.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch the Liverpool game. I was the other way around. I watched the Chelsea game. Personally, and I did say this in the WhatsApp chat to Jay and Brownie, I said I thought that they deserved the win over Chelsea. I didn't think Chelsea played particularly. I didn't think Chelsea played particularly badly. However, Leeds just did step it up on the night. And listen, I've had those results with Town in the Premier League going back to when we beat Man United and getting a draw at Chelsea and Man City. You know, I think when you get those sort of results, you can just feel it. There's something in the air, in the stadium. There's a buzz, there's an electricity. And whilst I don't like Leeds and the big yellow skip sometimes produces good atmospheres and electric atmospheres. And the players fed off that and deserved the win over Chelsea wholeheartedly. The Liverpool game, I kind of agree with Gaz. I only saw kind of the last 15 minutes, but, you know, what is Konate doing for that penalty? I have just no concept of... He's supposed to be a top defender. I don't know what he's doing. And like Gaz says, and has said before, they just have a bit of adversity. And the Reds go and Leeds fed off that. And I agree with Gaz, if there'd been 10 minutes left, I think Leeds would have won it. I mean, 4 points over them 2 games is magnificent. It could change the fortunes of Leeds United staying in the Premier League. The thing for Farke, the probably sad fact for Farke, if I'm being honest, is that, yes, he's probably earned a little bit of brownie points with Leeds fans. However, you know, we know that fan base is very split on Farke, and the ones that wanted him out probably still want him out, if we're being completely honest. And the sad fact is if he goes loses the next 3 games, or if they don't get results in the next 3 games, and then he gets sacked after them 3 games or whatever, it leaves the club in another bad position, doesn't it? Because we all thought he was going to be sacked probably after the Man City game, or if not the Man City game, definitely after the Liverpool game, if the run went badly. Where now it extends more into December, going into then January. You know, say if they lose the next 3 games or they don't get the results that they need,
well,
a new manager comes in at the end of December, start of January, and it's not an ideal time, is it? Really?
Well, I just want to interject on this because, and this is the thing that you can. So it's one of those footballing things where you can turn up for the big games against the big sides. Chelsea obviously are a historical rival. Same for Liverpool. You can turn and get those results. The next 3 games are as follows: Brentford away on Sunday, Crystal Palace at home on the 20th, and then Sunderland away on the 28th. I mean,
Brentford's not easy. Let's get it right. Brentford is not easy. As much as I don't like,
nobody in the right mind would look at the way things are going at the moment and think, oh, they'll beat Chelsea, but you know, lose to Brentford. Logic from a football perspective, whilst Brentford isn't easy, would suggest it would be the other way around. And this is the thing, it's going to be so important to back up those performances against the big sides by showing now for Daniel Farke that squad that he's selected and the players out there can go and back it up against the sides that, let's be honest, aren't the historical big sides, your Brentfords, your Palaces and your Sunderlands.
No,
I think it's worth pointing out that the nature of the Premier League this season has seen a lot of surprises. Brentford have really surprised me under Keith Andrews. I'm really shocked. I thought they were nailed on to go down, having lost Wissa and Mbeumo and Frank. I thought they'd really struggle. At home, they are a match for anybody, especially at home. They've got the big lad Thiago up front, who's causing people a lot of problems. And then obviously Sunderland are brilliant at home as well. Look at the start that they've had. They were in the Champions League places not too long ago. Nobody wants to go to the Stadium of Light. And then the other one is Palace, who are sitting 4th in the league. Yeah, and I've talked about Palace with a few people. People say that they've got an underrated squad. I just think they've got a squad full of great players. When you look at it, Crystal Palace, I really do, and I think they've got a good manager. So those 3 games, each one individually, is a real tough nut. It really, really is.
Couple of comments from the Sporting Journey. Sorry, Dan, I just want to bring up. Firstly, it says our fan base is nuts. Often question if the real Leeds family, some things they say. And then on this particular run that we touched on of Brentford, Palace, and Sunderland, he says 5 points would be a fantastic return, which actually, on the face of it, it's hard to disagree with when you look at the difficulty in detail. You know, the fact that Brentford is good at home, Palace and Sunderland having as good a seasons as they are down to.
Yeah. I mean, ironically, they're probably the easiest fixture, and I say that ironically, is Palace at home, because Leeds could, again, feed off the atmosphere, it being a night game. And, you know, Palace probably think, bloody hell, we've got to go to Yorkshire on a Tuesday night, or what is it, a Tuesday night? No, it's Saturday night. I mean, it's still not ideal a Saturday night, is it? Let's be honest. Oh, well, to Yorkshire. I think, ironically, that might be the easier of the games. But they've got to back it up, haven't they? And if Farke backs it up and say they go and get 6 points, or even like he said, 5 points, it just goes to cementing the chance of even staying up more. But as we know with Leeds United, you know, there'll still be a section of fans going, well, that's not good enough. It needs to be 9 points. We need to be, you know, we need to be up there. We're a big football. We know all that. We know all the gesturing and the thing about, you know, that side of things. And I think that causes Daniel Farke problems. I know you're laughing because I know that when Jay and Brownie watch it, they'll go, I hope he's on his town sort of shoebox. Well, that's not the case. It's just
his Great Dane.
But it is. I'm not speaking not truth there, am I? There are a section of fans it doesn't matter what Daniel Farker does, they just will not be happy with him because he's not Marcelo Bielsa. And I think it's just sad for Farker that that's just the case. And if he goes and wins the next 3, unbelievable. But you'll get some Leeds fans going, well, we expected that. He should be going and beating Brentford, who have only got Keith Andrews and everybody thought would go down. He should be going and beating Palace, where the big side. We might be bigger than Palace. We should be beating them, particularly at home. And then Sunderland, some fans will go, well, they came up with us as a promoted side. We should be beating them as well. So I think he's done magnificent as Daniel Farker, to be honest. And I think some of the criticism that he's had has been totally unwarranted. And to be fair to Jay and Brownie, they've probably been one of the only shining lights, being very sort of diplomatic and fair about it all. I have to give them credit, as much as I battle with them in the WhatsApp group and all the rest of it. I think, to be fair to Jay and Brownie, they've been very, very balanced with it. They've given in what I think is a correct view, and they haven't overreacted to every little thing that Farker said or what's being said about Farker. And I think he's done. I think he's done great, and I think, like I say, it's just a shame that if, say, in the next 3 they didn't get the results that they need, and then he ends up being sacked, it just causes them even more problems than if they just sacked him after the Liverpool game, to be honest, because time has moved on.
I mean, look, there's an easy 3 points for them after that run because they have to go to Anfield on New Year's Day. So that's an easy 3 points for Leeds, if nothing else, Gaz.
Absolutely, at the moment, mate, I've got no confidence in them in Liverpool at all whatsoever. I think what Downs is saying there is absolutely spot on, and it's something that we've talked about on the pod a lot. The thing with Farker is the narrative's been laid out since he got the job that he would get them into the Premiership, he wouldn't be good enough, and he'd lose his job. And fans, a lot of Leeds fans are going to stick by that. However well he does, they're just going to be waiting for him to fail and waiting for him to be sacked. That is the sad truth of it. That is what's going to that is what's happens at is going to happen at Leeds. However well he does, they are waiting for him to fail and be sacked because the narrative's been written since he took the job.
Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, I'll say that run in January, the first week of January, between the 1st and the 7th, you've got Liverpool versus Leeds. You've got Leeds at home to Man United on Sunday, the 4th of January, and then Leeds away at Newcastle for a 8:15 kickoff on Wednesday, the 7th of January. Just a quick one. Wolves have equalised by the looks of it, yet 1 apiece now in their game against Manchester United. That's Wolves' first goal in 6 games, I think, including this one.
About 700 years.
Richard UFC just making the point, though, kind of against kind of what we were saying, that Palace will be tied after their game in Europe. Sunderland will lose a few due to AFCON. These fixtures actually fall in Leeds' favour. I think, again, that's fair points well made.
Absolutely is. Yeah. I hadn't realised that Palace, it was after a European game. Well, now he said it makes sense, but I hadn't realised. And obviously, yeah, you're totally right about Sunderland. We've been saying that about them all season, haven't we? That they will lose players to AFCON. And it'll be interesting to see how they cope.
This is the other thing with the Leeds fan base, and this sums up the Leeds fan base perfectly, I think, for me. And look, I might get pelters for that, but the Sporting Journey, you can't be a bad manager winning 190 points in 2 seasons in a competitive championship. Fair point. But then Rich UFC, big difference between the Premier and the Championship, though. Russell Martin looked good in the Championship. Also a fair point. And that is the beauty of football. Let's just finish by looking at the Premier League table then. This is as it stands with Wolves taking a point, which would move them up to 3 points as they desperately try not to beat Derby's 11-point record of getting less than that. Leeds standing 16th in the Prem, 2 points above the bottom 3. And look, we've said it all season, not just for Leeds, but the relegation fight in general, I think is going to be a very, very close one, except maybe for Wolves. But look, stranger things have happened.
I don't think you can count Fulham out of it. I think there's something not right at Fulham.
I think a lot with Fulham is going to depend on what happens because Marco Silva is out of contract at the end of the season. It depends if he is A, offered a new deal, B, if he accepts the new deal. And I think it'll be, if he does accept it, it will be on the proviso that Fulham spend an absolute war chest in January because they didn't in the summer.
Well, yeah, you've just basically taken what I was going to say, to be honest. It is about Marco Silva and whether he's offered a new contract. So I think Fulham are looking, the ones to reel in, really. I don't see anybody massive. Brentford could nosedive, to be fair. I think Dyche will just steadily move Forest up the table. I really don't rate West Ham's squad. I really don't. And I think, to be honest, unfortunately, Burnley are looking sort of like dead as well down there. I know they're on 10 points, don't get me wrong, better than Wolves, but they just keep losing games like 1-0, 2-1, and they don't seem to be getting anywhere. They don't even seem to be drawing games. So.
Yeah, they played really well at Newcastle by all accounts on Saturday, but obviously lost 2-1. Gaz, I mean, look, two things, I guess, on the relegation front. Firstly, do you reckon Wolves, any chance for them to stay up? And secondly, Liverpool only 10 points above the relegation zone, mate.
Mate, you know me, I'm a pessimist. I wouldn't rule it out.
I know you're a pessimist, but I also know you're not completely freaking insane. Like
everything's on fire there at the moment. It really, really is. It's just horrendous. I said to somebody the other day, it's all very Man United. It feels like the things are happening there that have happened at Man United over the last 2 or 3 years. Hopefully, it steadies itself out. The Salah thing, obviously, we don't know what's going to happen, but Arne Slot has said today that he doesn't know if he'll play for the club again or not. But looking at the bottom of the league, don't want to talk about Liverpool. Looking at the bottom of the league, yeah, Wolves are gone. I think Burnley are almost gone. And then it's one from what? What did we say? 1 from 4 or 5, maybe at the most. 1 from 4. I think Downs is right with Fulham. I think they could get dragged in. It all hangs on Marco Silva. I know Fulham have said they want to keep him, but does he want to stay? And that is going to come down to what backing he gets in January, isn't it? I think Forest will move themselves away. West Ham have a chance with Nuno to sort themselves out. I don't think the squad's as bad as Downsy says, but I think it's probably one of the better squads, actually. It's better than Burnley's, it's better than Wolves. I think it's better than Leeds'. It's probably not as good as Forest or Fulham's. But, yeah, 1 from 3 or 4 to join Burnley and Wolves for me.
I really don't think it is, Gaz.
It's better than Brentford's for me. Without a doubt.
I don't think it. I don't. Yeah,
let's not talk about West Ham though. But I have to ask you before you go, what is your take on the whole Salah situation? Because it really seems mental. And look, from a neutral perspective, surely the way this is all going to head, and I appreciate that the Saudi League does not have the money that it did a year ago. But surely this is all shaping up for Mo Salah to head to Saudi Arabia in January. And I think we were touching it beforehand. And hopefully a reinvestment for Liverpool in a new centre-half and probably sell off Canate as well. Because clearly after last season, how great he was last season at title side, his head's been rocked in the summer by not going to Real Madrid. And he looks a shadow of his former self from the year before as well. So surely Salah goes, you reinvest the funds and get another centre-half, yeah?
That's what I said to you before we went live, isn't it, Chris? That's what I think that's what Edwards and Hughes want to do. I think they've looked at Salah this season. They've seen that he's not producing the numbers that he has been over the last few years. He's certainly not tracking back like he has in games before. He's arguing that he's been given the freedom to attack. I think Slot's made a mess of it this season. We're not going to go down that road. I really do think he has. Why on earth you give Gravenberch is on record as saying that he's been given more freedom to get forward this season? Why on earth are you giving your number 6 more freedom to get forward? There's no screen for the defence whatsoever when you watch them. Salah isn't, like I said, producing the numbers. He's not tracking back. Salah has an argument in the fact that, he has been scapegoated to a certain extent because he's the only one that has been dropped from the squad. Gakpo has been dreadful for weeks. Canate is just an absolute mess. And neither of them are getting dropped. Both of them are playing week in, week out. Salah's the only one that's been dropped. So in that respect, he has a point. But you just can't come out and do what he's done. And I think we are moving to a resolution that he will be sold in January. They'll probably look at bringing in Semenyo, and hopefully there'll be enough left over to bring in a centre-half. What's remarkable is that they're still wanting to keep Canate because, like you said, Chris, I'd be selling him in January. The bloke's an Liverpool were cruising on Saturday at Leeds. They were absolutely cruising until he shut the bed. He dived in when he didn't need to. Why he doesn't just stay on his feet and see that ball out of play, only he knows, because like I said, they were cruising. Leeds weren't in the game at that point at all. And it's just it's another example that is something he has been doing regularly all season. And he's gone from being one of the, or arguably on the trajectory to be one of the best centre halves in the world, to being someone that Real Madrid have now said they don't want, and it's arguable whether Liverpool even want to keep him. I can only say he's playing at the moment because there's nobody else. If Leone hadn't done his cruise shot on his debut, I think he'd be playing now. I really do.
Because this is the thing, though. Like, he was absolutely superb last season, without a doubt. And it's one of those that obviously there's the old saying of, you know, form is temporary, class is permanent sort of thing. I mean, it certainly does seem that a spell out of the side might be what Canate needs to then kind of just settle himself and hopefully find some form again. But it's whether he's going to get that chance out of the side. It doesn't seem that way, given as you say, it seems to be Salah that's the only one that's droppable at the moment.
And that's where Salah's got a point, but you still can't come out and do what Salah's done. And I think, I'll be honest with you, I think Salah goes in January, and I would not be surprised, especially if Liverpool don't make the top four, that Slot goes at the end of the season. I honestly think that's where we're heading at the moment. Though I think they'll give him the rest of the season, because I think everything that's gone on with Jota, and I don't subscribe to the argument that, it weren't affecting them at the start of the season when they won the first 5. What an absolute nonsense argument that is. They were dreadful at the start of the season. They've been dreadful all season. The results have just caught up with them. And we know how grief affects people. And I just see them at the moment where adversity, anything that goes against them in any game, like I say, Canate, brain fart, heads have all gone. And Canate, what he's doing week in, week out, has now fed into Van Dijk, because Van Dijk now looks an absolute mess as well, which he wasn't at the start of the season, and playing next to Canate has sent him down that road as well. So yeah, it's just a mess, and I think Salah will go in January, and if Liverpool don't get the top 4, Slot will go at the end of the season. That's what I think.
And despite all that, you're only 3 points off the Champions League. Downsy, final word from you?
Yeah, I think firstly, I've never heard, even with what Gaz said about Man United, I've never heard of a player saying with the intensity of what Salah's said. I think it's absolutely stunning what he said. Like, stunning in a bad way, by the way.
Yeah, it's horrendous.
I can't believe that he's gone out, and it's very public. Like, I think it's premeditated, because somebody was saying, I saw it on, was it Sky Sports, that, you know, at the end of the Leeds game, he was clapping the fans. He was stood there for ages. It was kind of looked like he was saying goodbye to the away fans, at least. And having watched that bit of a video, I think it's right, probably what they said. Now, I think he knew that he was going to say something after the Leeds game. I'm absolutely stunned with what he said. I don't think he's playing for the club again. And to be honest, the thing with Liverpool is, they have to back the manager. They can't. No player is ever bigger than any club, but particularly at Liverpool Football Club. No player, not even Kenny Dalglish in his pomp, was bigger as a player as what the manager is. Now, the other thing is, you know, I think, yes, I agree with the stuff around grief and Jota, that obviously plays into it. I do also think, though, you know, Slot's made a bit of a ball ache of it. I think the other thing that, and I said this to my dad when we were watching the game, like, if this had been Klopp, I think he'd have been able to turn it round. Like, you remember, was it a year ago, Gaz, when it was at West Ham, and Klopp and Salah had a bit of an argument, a bit of a tiff on the sideline, and it kind of all got sorted within a week. And I just think that was probably because of Klopp's personality, and Slot doesn't have that. He's not that sort of personality, and I think maybe the job might be too big for him. Now,
come off it.
No. Some managers just, I don't.
How can you say the job's too big for him when he's literally won the league last season?
But it was with Klopp's team. Nobody can say that wasn't Klopp's team. Literally, they were in the form and alliance.
Yeah, it might have been Klopp's team, but you know what? He did better than Klopp did with Klopp's team.
Well, I don't think you can say that, because Klopp won the Premier League and the Champions League.
But Klopp didn't win the league with before.
No, because a lot of them players did win the league with Klopp, didn't they? and they
It
won
was
the Champions League.
What, 6 years though between titles, mate? Which
Yeah,
means there was
but
4
a lot of
seasons
them.
in the top that Liverpool didn't win the title.
Yeah, but a
At
lot of
least.
those players were still in that side. Robertson, Alisson, Salah, Van Dijk. You know, the absolute strength of that team that's been so successful over the years is because them 4 players in particular have been part of that side. You've got an aging Van Dijk, who I agree with Gaz, start the season all right, but because of the way Konate has now had to cover Konate so much his own deficiencies have come into play because he's aging. Robertson, they've just seemed to have chucked Robertson under a little bit of a bus, but fair play to Robertson, he won't come out and say anything. Kirkes hasn't been good enough in that position, and Frimpong's injured. Isak and Ekatike have been well. Ekatike has been all right, but Isak certainly hasn't been good enough. And they've brought all these big personalities in, 7 massive personalities into the squad, and it's just not it's not done any good. I think personally, I agree with Gaz. Like if they don't make top 4, I don't think Slot will be there. I think Salah will be sold in January, and I think, to be honest, Salah knows that he wants to go in January. I think he's planned it since the start of the season, really. You know, you only ever speak, and I don't know whether you agree with this. Obviously, I'm not sometimes Carragher's biggest fan, but I do agree that Salah only ever speaks when he's got something to say about his own situation. You see Van Dijk coming after losses. You see Robertson standing up after losses. You see even Alisson coming out after losses and speaking. You never, ever see Mo Salah coming out after Liverpool have lost a game to speak about the performance.
He only speaks about
himself.
That he's a knob.
And to me, that doesn't show leadership.
Do you want me to come in, Chris?
Yeah, go, by all means, mate. I appreciate, by the way, we are diverting off the West Yorkshire Football Show, but it's a good chat, so we'll go with it.
The thing is, Salah's done this before. It's not the first time that he's spoken out, like Downs is saying there. There was the West Ham game under Klopp, and it all got sorted out very, very, very quickly. You always felt, as a Liverpool supporter, that when things were going bad under Klopp, and we had a couple of these spells under Klopp, maybe not quite as long, but I think we lost 5 games at Anfield in a row under Klopp. We had 2 spells under Klopp in the last 5 or 6 years where things were quite similar in terms of results to what they are now. But you always felt with Klopp that Klopp could turn it around. You had faith that he'd sort it out and he'd turn it around. And I don't have that at the moment. I think that I'm not necessarily... It's a perfect storm at Liverpool at the moment in the respect that all these new players have come in. There's been a change in the style of play, and it's all happened to a group of players that are grieving, and that has come and created a perfect storm and resulted in what is happening this season. I've seen people say that Liverpool have moved to a more technical approach when the league itself has gone to a more physical league. So Liverpool have moved the wrong way in that respect to how the league's gone. If you look at the way that... I
kind of get that from the way that football's gone this season.
Another argument. And I just think I'm told, or I'm reading between the lines, that Salah only signed a contract. I mean, he signed a 2-year contract, didn't he, towards the end of last season? And I'm led to believe that Salah signed that contract because he was told that he would not be sold. He would not be sold for a fee, and he would be allowed to leave on a free transfer at the end of that contract. And he feels that given what's happened and him being dropped, and I think it's come from above, that his form and the fact that he's not playing well, that Edwards and Hughes have decided that they want to sell him. Yeah. And he feels that they've gone back on the word in that respect. So I can see where he's coming from regarding it's been scapegoated, and I can see where he's coming from in the regard that he feels that they've gone back on the word. But you cannot come out and do what he's done and say what he said. And I think he's got. I think got to AFCON after Saturday anyway. There's 2 games before he goes to AFCON. There's Inter Milan in the Champions League tomorrow night, and there's Brighton at home in the Premier League on Saturday. He's already been not travelled to Inter Milan tomorrow. He's not going. I don't think he'll feature on Saturday. I think he's played his last game. I think he'll leave in January. I really do.
You know what? If I was Liverpool's position, I wouldn't give a shit what had been said for Salah to sign a new deal, because it's all well and good saying, "Oh yeah, you won't be sold. You can see out your 2-year contract." You've still got to turn up and be good. You've still got to turn up and be. And he's been shit.
Absolutely.
4 goals, all like this season so far, off the back of a 29-goal season last year, and he was, in fact, last year I think was his best season goals wise for the previous 4. I think.
Yeah,
that's what I didn't like, Chris. That's what I didn't like. What he came out and said. I have earned my position. I do not deserve to be dropped. I have earned my position over the last however many years.
You've got to be good.
You've got to do it week in, week out. It doesn't matter what you did 3, 4, 5 years ago. It's what you did last week and the week before that counts.
Yeah,
just because you earned your position in the team over the last 4 or 5 years, you've got to be earning it now. And it doesn't matter what you did back then.
You're only as good as your last performance. You're only as good as your last performance. And his last performance has been crap.
Otherwise, Kenny Dalglish and Ian Rush should still be playing for Liverpool.
Yeah, but this is the thing, guys. This is what does my head, because obviously I've got slight allegiance to Liverpool, not on the same level as you have, because through my dad. But we were saying the other day, like, Ian Rush went to Juventus in probably the highlight of his career, because obviously he came back to Liverpool. We had Kevin Keegan went to Hamburg. Like, players are replaceable, whether they're legends of the football club, they are replaceable to some point. And yes, all right, you signed a contract and you got told something, but end of the day, mate, you get paid over £300,000, and I tell you what, millions upon millions of lads in this country would love to be in your position right now. And I just think that Robertson and Van Dijk are saying that. Well, they're doing right. They're not saying what Salah's come out and said. I think it's just all about ego for me.
Robertson's been playing as well. He's going to come back in. I'll just bring that back up for you guys.
Yeah, that last comment is exactly what I said at the start of this chat. That is one of the things he's got a point on, in that he's been scapegoated. How come he's getting dropped and Gakpo and Kanate are playing week in, week out? What I will say is that I think there will be players in that dressing room who probably feel this. He's going to have allies in that dressing room with Salah. I don't think he'll be the only one that thinks how he thinks. I think there'll be players that feel possibly agree with what he said, but they will not come out and say it because it's the wrong thing to do. And I also think that you've got to realise that this is the worst time he could have done it. Look at the mess they're in, form-wise, in the league. Yeah. Look at how they're playing. Look at everything that's going on. And he's just come out and thrown petrol on the fire and made it a lot worse.
I also think, though,
that's disgraceful. And final point from me: Alonso's getting sacked at Madrid. I think I wouldn't rule out him being Liverpool manager next season.
Well, that's I wasn't going to come on to that. We will see. I think, though, as well, that yes, Salah might have some allies in that dressing room, but I also think Slot will. It wouldn't surprise me if Slot has more allies, because his teammates will be looking around at, like, Salah's teammates will be looking at Salah and thinking you're not performing. Like, and the problem is you can't drop everyone. Like,
I think he's soft though, Chris.
If Liverpool dropped all the players that aren't performing this season, they'd have to play in the 12s. Like,
but I think
aside is playing shit.
I think he's too soft. I think Slot's too soft. I
think this proves the other. I think this proves the opposite.
It wouldn't happen under Klopp. It definitely wouldn't happen under Sir Alex Ferguson. I'll tell you that now. Salah wouldn't even would never
take the Liverpool job to start with. I don't understand how this is soft. Slot's being soft by dropping. It would be far softer if Slot's soft. He'd be playing Salah week out. He'd be bowing down to this god of a player that Liverpool have got. Instead, he's done the opposite and dropped him. It's like Ten Hag with Cristiano Ronaldo. Ten Hag didn't take the shit from Ronaldo that he was giving and dropped him and got him gone. And I think that's what's going to happen here. But I think that's going to have a more positive long-term effect for Liverpool than it will that happened at United with Ronaldo going.
Yeah, but Ten Hag didn't sort it out, did he, at Man United, and eventually got sacked. And Man United fans
but I think this will work out in a better result for Slot than it did for Ten Hag. I think it's going to be the same situation with a different outcome.
Well, we'll see.
Final point for me, because I do need to go. it's just a sad, sad way for a Liverpool career to end for a legend. It's just really, really sad that it's going to end like this. And however much Trent Alexander-Arnold got booed and Liverpool fans hated him last season, he got a much better send-off than Salah's going to have now, and that's really sad.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. We will round it up and finish up there.
Play
I
the
appreciate
credits.
that we ended up with the West Yorkshire Football Show going scouse for the last 15 minutes or so, but good chat all the same, and it's a big footballing story. And look, we've always said on the grand scheme of things that on certain times on the Monday show we will discuss the bigger issues in football that are away from our side. So we've done that tonight. Thank you, Gaz. So we will be back this coming week with, I guess, more content. Keep an eye out on the socials for Jay and Brownie and them doing more Leeds content. Downsy, I'm guessing you'll be back at the weekend with another town talk.
We will after 2 town losses. So up the town.
We'll see what it brings. But so there we go. Big thank you to Gareth Walker and to Stephen Downs for joining me tonight. If you've caught the show late, you're able to watch it in full on the YouTube channel in due course. Keep an eye across our social media to see what shows we've got coming up over the coming weeks. But as I say, from myself and Gaz and from Downsy, we'll see you again soon here on the West Yorkshire Football Show. Good night.
Night, mate.